Hi, I'm Maddie Scary, and I'm the director of the Poppy Jasper International Film Festival. And I'm here today with writer-director Lane Michael Stanley and drag queen Miss Alina Malletti Galore. I am just so excited to have you, Lena. She is Miss Gay Universe, was Miss Gay Universe, reigning
Yes, I'm a
champion,
former.
and
Yeah.
also Miss Gay West Coast. And you're going to be, because you're going to be Miss Gay USA. I know it. I know it. Thank you for being here today. And we're here to talk about this amazing film, Addict, Addict Named Hal.
Yes.
And it's actually got the best feature for the film festival this year, and I'm just so proud of it. It's one of those films that when I was watching everything, that just stayed with me. Didn't matter what other film I watched, just stayed with me. It's a beautiful film, and I don't know anyone who would be better to interview Lane than Miss Alina Malletti Galore. So thank you, Alina.
Thank you. Hold on, let me make sure that my face is looking right at the camera. My husband got me a new iPad, so is my face direct?
You're good.
I want to be able to say I'm looking at everyone. So Lane, I'm so glad that we get the opportunity to speak with you. Did you actually make it to the Poppy Jasper Film Festival?
No, sadly I was on set, so I wasn't able to make it this year, but I'm hoping in a future year. It sounds like it was an amazing time.
We had such an amazing time. It was my very first experience with the Poppy Jasper Film Festival, and to know that we took time away to have subcategories. We had Women's Day, we had Men's Day, we had Latino Day, we had LGBTQ plus Day, and then we just had we had Seniors Day. There was a lot of days going on for people who actually create films. So one of the films who stood out for all of us was Addict Named Hal. I loved it. But I would really like you to tell us on how the film came to be and what made you go in this direction. But before that, could you please give us a little history of Lane?
Sure. So, sorry, my cats are zooming around the house. So I'm a cat owner. I'm sure that's what everyone wants to know. No, I started out in theater and especially in Shakespeare. And so that's what I did for a number of years back in Baltimore. I'm originally from San Diego and grew up in Maryland. And over the past 5 or so years have been transitioning to film, and Hal is my first feature. And Hal was really what caused me to transition from theater to film. So I lived in a halfway house for 6 months and went through an inpatient rehab program after my fiance died suddenly of a heart attack in 2016. And so I just celebrated 6 years sober last week, 2 weeks ago, something like that. Thank you. And the whole experience of being in recovery was nothing like what I expected. And I went in thinking that I would never do a 12-step program. I went into rehab thinking I just needed to get back to normal drinking, which turns out not to be something that I was ever doing. But when I got to rehab, people were talking about long-term sobriety, and and 12-step programs were nothing like what I thought they would be. And so the question becomes, why did I think they would be anyway at all, right? Having never gone to a 12-step program, why did I think I knew enough about them to swear them off? And I think it's this kind of pervasive, often media-based depiction of 12-step programs as kind of like sad people in a circle, in a gray room, drinking coffee, being sad, and being really, really overly heartfelt, Yeah. And so I also thought that there was going to be a lot more religion, and obviously, just like any space, there are people who are religious and there are people who are not religious. And so I was shocked in rehab by how much laughter there was, by how much joking there was, and by how strong of a community there was. And I think I also expected everyone to be like boring teetotalers, and it's literally the opposite in a recovery program, right? It's the people who went way too hard, not the folks who are just like, oh, I've never been interested. They don't have to go to AA or to 12-step programs. So all of that was kind of coalescing, and it was such a surprise for me going into recovery that it felt important to me to tell what I had found. And I tried to do that through playwriting. So sorry, my cat is now battling a grocery bag. I tried to do that through playwriting, and it was just not coming out. It was coming out very overwrought, overly heartfelt. I was not really able to have the cast of characters in a play that I felt I needed for the wide diversity of a recovery experience and what that can look like. I'm not saying that no play could do it. I'm just saying that I was failing. Yeah. And so around that time, started talking with who's now my producing partner, Lowell Blank, about the possibility of writing screenplays from some of my plays, and instead decided to write something new, and immediately switching mediums solved all the problems that I was having. And so Hal is it's inspired by the experience that I had in the halfway house and things that I saw people go through. Luckily, that second half is not autobiographical, but it's certainly a common experience that I've seen even just already this year happen to people. So yeah, that's the overview.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I loved about your movie is that everyone was real. You know, in some movies, especially, and I don't know if it doesn't seem like it was an LGBTQ plus movie. It just felt like it was a movie of people going through transitioning from being an alcoholic or being a drug abuser and trying to figure their way out. And this was the center that they were in, but they were normal, everyday people. And what a lot of people think who are sending people to rehab is that if we send you to rehab, you're going to come out, and you're better. And you showed that, you know what, everybody has a struggle, and the struggle is real. Now, I'm not going to tell, hopefully people will go out and see this movie, because right now it's on IMDb, and hopefully we can get it out on the market. We want you to be rich and famous like the rest of these people out here. But the way that the movie was going, is you addicted, and an addict named Hal, was that someone that you knew when you were transitioning?
A lot of the characters are kind of inspired by certain people or amalgamations of people that I knew. Yeah. Okay. So it's not kind of like strictly based on a specific person, but it's kind of a combination of a lot of the people that I knew, guys that were coming, that had warrants out that would get picked up, on just stupid stuff, and kind of, I think for Hal in particular, that character, how much those cycles of like stupid incarceration, right? Like, and again, I say stupid because it's just like, there's some dumb infraction, there's a possession, or maybe there's like an armed robbery, which like, I'm not saying is great, but not the worst crime ever either. But there's some kind of stupid drug fueled crime that happens, and then they don't show up to court and have a failure to appear, and then that results in a bench warrant, and then and it's just like this one stupid little thing that gets you in the system
that keeps you on,
backs you forever, and it makes it so hard to rebuild a life, to get a job, because your job gets interrupted by these dumb 30-day incarcerations that are really serving no one, right? And then without a job, it's hard to build self-worth for a lot of people, right? And so so how I saw a lot of guys who were stuck in, I mean, not just men, obviously, but a lot of people who were stuck in that kind of none of their crimes were interesting. You know what I mean? Like, none were particularly bad, or alarming, where it's like, wow, this person really needs to have their behavior corrected. It was just like stupid bullshit, that follows you.
It's an unfortunate situation that people end up in jail for drugs instead of ending up in hospitals where they can get help. Because with the process, like you were saying before, it ends up being a downward spiral. You can, if you don't make it, because you're going through something, if you don't make it to court, then you have a bench warrant. And if they get you for the bench warrant, then it's double down to what you did before, which means you could be spending time, which means your only way out is the halfway house. And then if that doesn't work, then you're just gonna go to jail. We gave you a chance. But what they keep forgetting is that alcoholism and drug dependency is a mental problem. And you need to help it that way. There is something that is causing that person to go that way. And most of the people who are drinking and doing drugs and get themselves in trouble, they're not people they're not violent people. They're suffering.
Yeah.
And the problem that we have is there truly is no cure for alcoholism and drug abuse, with an exception of abstinence and working hard to stay that way. Mm-hmm. And we unfortunately have a lot of people that, drug addicts and alcoholics are not patient. That's why we find ourselves in situations that we're in. So I love this movie because I am a product of two alcoholic parents. I've seen my mom go into rehab. I wasn't there with her, but she went through rehab 4 times. I went to rehab. My son went to rehab. And one of the great things is that I learned how to stop. Others, I always say people shouldn't be forced into rehab if they're not ready to go, because it's wasted money. There's an underlying problem. But what I loved about this movie is you showed people from a real side. You showed the mom saying, you know what, we really can't, this is all we can afford. And I still love you enough to take you here. You showed the daughter saying, I'm supposed to do this at this age, but she doesn't realize how harsh this actually is until this traumatic experience actually happens. Mm-hmm. And you see the guy in the beginning who's actually the leader of the house, who has another life outside of the house. But guess what? I have to stay in this house because this is my penance as well. So I loved everything about this movie. It was real. The actors were incredible. And I just want to know, how did you audition? How did you find these great people?
Yeah, so these folks are almost all local Austin. We shot in Austin, Texas, where I was getting my MFA. And I think, one person came in from San Antonio, but it's a local Austin cast, and we just were so fortunate. Natalie Lamoureux, who plays Amy, is in Richard Linklater's new movie, Apollo 10.5, that just came out on Netflix. So if you want to see more of her, you can. And Ray Roberts, who plays Hal, and she was just a cold audition. Yeah, we saw close to 200 people. I mean, Austin is I feel like we're supposed to stop telling people that Austin is great because everyone keeps moving there and they don't like it. But Austin's a really underrated town, and has an incredible film community, and a lot of really talented people. So yeah, I think we saw close to 200 people, just from posting our audition notice. Ray Roberts, who plays Hal, I had worked with before on a play the year before. And so he came in and he actually signed up to audition for Bradley. And I told him, no. I mean, you can read whatever you want in the audition, but I'm calling you back for Hal, so you might as well just start there. Yeah. Did such an incredible job. And yeah, a few folks, Callie Sykes, who plays Andrea, and Justin Whitener, who plays Bradley, I knew from UT.
Okay.
University of Texas at Austin. They were undergraduates there. And actually, both of the people who play the nurses who do the urine tests in the morning, they are both undergraduates as well. They're both non-traditional students, so just getting their bachelor's a little later in life. So a couple folks that I knew, most of the crew was from UT, but our cast, was somewhat from UT. All of our extras in the meeting and the speakers were folks from the AA, from the 12-step community in Austin. And then other than that, we invited people to come audition, and we were fortunate that people came and, and we could do lots of readings for chemistry, and the ensemble is so important, obviously. But we were just really fortunate. Yeah.
That is so amazing. So one of the things that has brought to my attention was that you're also transitioning in life as well. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Sure.
So I came out as non-binary when I was 23. Around the time that I started dating the person who would become my fiance, who would then become my dead fiance. it's probably not the most delicate way I could have put that, but it's too late.
It works. It
I
works.
never
It's true.
100%. No, he's not my ex. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like,
It's your Lane. Don't be ashamed of anything that you have to say because it is your truth, and I love it. So
thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it can be hard sometimes. Sometimes people can be very shocked when I mention. I mean, I'm a little young to be a widower. You know what I mean? And so people can not take it so well. So anyway, his name was Nick. I'll just call him that.
Okay.
So around the time that we first started dating, I realized that I was non-binary and came out while we were together. And I think that, and we had kind of been talking about that I was like potentially interested in medical stuff, but I was like very unsure of whether that was something I really wanted to do or if it was just a change of name and pronouns. And then he died and I had to go to rehab and just the gender stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not have brain space to care. I was not about to come out to a bunch of people in Baltimore in the middle of the heroin epidemic who were just trying to not do heroin. I was not going to try to talk about they, them pronouns to people who had never heard of it before, who were going through their own stuff. It was just, and I was a disaster. My first 6 months clean were bananas. So it just got very put on the back burner. And then I kind of went from the halfway house to grad school. And, you know, there was kind of back in my pronouns and everything, but kind of once I had the chance to settle, like in my second year of grad school, I think once I kind of settled down, was just feeling very unhappy and not totally understanding why. And I thought it was because of people. I thought I blamed like academia at first. And then, was able to work with a trans guy on a project, and just being around him and sharing space with him made me realize like, oh, I'm super, super jealous of him. And so started testosterone and then got top surgery about 6 months later. So yeah, that was about 3 years ago now that I started testosterone. And so did another name and pronoun change.
Okay.
And yeah, it's a lot better for me now.
Congratulations. With Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, Trans Lives Movement, if you could, I have a lot of trans brothers and sisters who, after they start their process, they say that no one wants to hire them or they don't know what they're going to do next. Now you have proven to be a success and more success is coming your way. Could you give us an inspirational words to those trans men and women who don't have a direction to go yet in their life?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a phrase in recovery that I don't agree with, but I think actually applies here, which is my worst day sober is better than my best day using. It sounds good. I personally, that's not my experience. You know what I mean? Like I went to a lot of therapy before I got sober. I had a healthy relationship, you know what I mean? Like, and I've had some really hard days in sobriety. So it's one of those things that like sounds real. And I think it is some people's experience. It's not my personal experience. However, I do think that a similar just kind of opening up happens when you transition, right? And I think there's actually a lot of parallels between sobriety and transitioning, where people will often say like, sobriety doesn't fix all of your problems, but it creates a space where you can start to work on your problems in a way that you were not able to before. And I have just encountered a lot of closeted trans people who are afraid of what they would have to give up. And it's just not worth it to live a lie. And so I do think like, and I know people who, you know, gave up their businesses, who gave up their families, you know, and at least for a while. I do think also that like when you first come out, the shockwaves that can happen compared to 5 years later and 10 years later, where people land. Like I am fortunate now to have been out long enough that I've started to see people really go through long-term change. Like I got to see people in my life who initially were so uncomfortable, then come to bat for me and stand up for me several years later, you know? So like, I think we don't have to hold people to their first reactions. For me, I would rather work at a gas station as myself.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with working at a gas station,
Right.
than to run a company as a woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's just, I just think it's worth it. Yeah. And sometimes you have to, like, everything has to come crashing down so that you can build on a real, stable, authentic foundation. And that's painful when it happens, but if you can find your community and you can find just a couple people who will stand by you through that, you absolutely can start to rebuild, and what you rebuild is like a million times
better.
It's just incomparable. Yeah.
There was an old saying when I was a kid that was said, "To thine own self be true." And I think that that is so relevant in this time. And one of the things that my pastor says is that I'd be the best Christian in the world if it wasn't for me. And so I use that with life. I'd say I'd be the best person in the world if it wasn't for me, because I always get in my own way. So when you correlate to thine own self be true and get out of your own way, then you have a process for being the most incredible person in the world. So with that being said, what is next for Lane Michael Stanley?
Couple of projects right now. One, I'm shooting my second feature now-ish, approximately now. Okay. It's called T, and we're shooting, it's a narrative film, but we're shooting incrementally over the lead actor's first year on testosterone. So if you saw Boyhood, kind of like that, but shorter, and for gender transition rather than growing up. So fiction film, but they will actually be going through the changes. And we are finalizing investors on that now. So if anyone's been looking to break into trans cinema, they can call me. Yeah, so we're almost halfway through shooting. So we started last October and we'll be shooting through the end of the year. Okay. And then just finished up a film on a grant with an organization called Art with Impact that commissions films dealing with mental health issues. And so ours were grief and resilience and substance abuse and recovery. And so just got to finish up a short dance film, which was a delight to make. And then next week, this is the last one, I promise. Next week, I'm shooting my first short documentary, which I'm really excited about. Through a screening of Addict Named Hal, actually, and through a restorative justice training that I went through, met these guys who formed a band in 2014 while serving life sentences in San Quentin. And then 3 of them were paroled, came to the same sober house in Compton and reformed the band. And so we are telling, the story of basically how music helped them cope with prison, but also how it has been helping them form community and promote their healing and the healing of others now that they're out.
That is so fantastic. So I am so proud of you, and I'm so glad that I got this time to spend with you. But I would like you to leave us with something that doesn't have to do with trans lives, something that doesn't have to do with your movies. I want you to leave us with a positive thought that just works with you throughout the day. And it can't be about the cats.
Not about the cats either. Those are all my personality traits.
Uh-oh, I caught you.
I know, you did. I've started meditating every day the past few months. And that has been, my first thought is to teach you this breathing technique.
I'm listening. This is what makes we're all individuals.
Okay. It's called alternate nostril breathing.
Alternate nostril breathing.
So hold your hand like this. Yeah. Okay. You put your thumb over your right nostril and you breathe in through your left. And then you put your pinky over your left nostril, breathe out through your right. In through the right. And you switch. And out through the left. Then you just repeat that cycle. And it's super, super grounding. That's what I'm like obsessed with.
Actually, when you concentrate on breathing, you actually do feel the difference compared to it just being something that happens every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was kind of deep. So, ladies and gentlemen, just remember, when you want to be grounded, stick both of your fingers up to your nose and breathe in and out.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
My name is Alina Malletti Galore, and I am so happy to be a part of the Poppy Jasper Film Festival. And Michael, if you ever want a beautiful enchantress to grace your films, Alina Malletti Galore at yahoo.com. She will film, you know, just get me in there. I'm trying to get my come-ups too. So,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you both for being here today. And this was just an amazing discussion. And I appreciate it so much. And Lane, I look forward to seeing your next film.
Thank you.
Yes, me too. Hopefully I'll be in one. You don't know if you don't ask, right?
Yeah.